Angel Reese did the John Cena "you can't see me" face move, right? That was basically mocking Caitlin Clark's move throughout the entire tournament, and the reaction online was ridiculous. It was ridiculous, starting with known bigot, bloviator, uh, braggadocious union buster. Literally said he would fire people on Twitter if they tried to form a union over at Barstool. Also has been accused of sexual misconduct multiple times, attempted to go after the reporters that highlighted that. The douche nozzle, little bitty Dave Portnoy, went on Twitter to say that he thought that Reese was a, quote, classless piece of shit. Now, let's play this with the sound off, Bradley, because in the quote tweet you can see what Angel Reese was doing here to Caitlin Clark, including the, pointing to her ring finger. She's getting the ring, and then doing the "now you see me" right in her face. Which is, for my money, pretty awesome. This also was, I think, a bit of a hot button issue because LSU, majority black team, Iowa was on the whiter side in terms of the complexion. So the battle lines were somewhat drawn. And Reese kind of was asked about this in her post-game interview, saying that she thought that previously Caitlin Clark, who had Iowa had just played South Carolina, Clark was waving off her teammates from defending one of the South Carolina players, who I think was a freshman, at the 3-point line, kind of just like getting in her, you don't even need to cover her back there. She's not going to make it behind the 3-point line, which, like, I don't see that as disrespect. I see that as similar to what Reese was doing, right? It's a team sport. You get motivation from a variety of different places, and Caitlin Clark was being like a competitor there. But Reese has every right to take that as motivation for her trash talk in the championship game, which is what she did. And then just and Keith Olbermann too, going after Angel Reese. It was like ridiculous. I honestly think that there's a lot of sexism embedded in this too, that women should be above this kind of thing, but particularly black women, because Caitlin Clark has been doing the trash talk throughout the tournament. And this is some of what Angel Reese had to say after the game, when she was asked about this atrocious behavior of doing the now you see me, now you don't, John Cena thing, and pointing to her ring finger. Oh gosh, where are the manners?
I'm happy. I mean, all year I was critiqued about who I was. Nobody. I don't. Yeah. The narrative. I don't fit the narrative. I don't fit in the box that y'all want me to be in. I'm too hood. I'm too ghetto. Y'all told me that all year. But when other people do it, y'all don't say nothing. So this was for the girls that look like me, that's gonna speak up on what they believe in. It's unapologetically you. And that's what I did it for tonight. This was for it was bigger than me tonight. It was bigger than me. Twitter is gonna go in a rage every time. And I mean, I'm happy. I feel like I've helped grow women's basketball this year. I'm super happy and excited. So I'm looking forward to celebrating in the next season.
I mean, first of all, when she celebrates, she can't even probably legally drink. What? She's 20 years old, something like that.
Which is also
which is why, like,
partially
criticism towards it. Classless piece of shit, Classless piece of shit, Dave Portnoy. I'm sorry that you're a complete.
She's 25
degenerate.
years younger than him. She's 25 years younger than him.
No, I sports bet. I don't put hundreds of $1,000s down. Like, I don't have that money that Portnoy does. So maybe I don't have the leg to stand on here. But I've lost bets. I placed $20, $30 bets on DraftKings, and I'm disappointed at a certain point. I know you bet on Iowa, buddy. I know you bet on Iowa and then you lost. But don't be a little bitch about it, huh? Take your bet losses like a man, and don't go after 20-year-old women on Twitter, asshole.
That's the thing. It's
little
just
bitch. He's such a little bitch.
Yeah,
I mean, truly.
It's
go lay in a tanning bed a little more.
Yeah, it's just like, it's appalling, and it would be appalling regardless of how old she is. But it's just even the imbalance of, like, let's be real. He can be as much as he can try and posture as like, an egalitarian. Oh, it's the one bite pizza review guy. Yada yada yada. He is one of the most popular, powerful media figures in the entire world right now, with one of the most lucrative sports media companies, if not maybe the most lucrative sports media company outside of like ESPN. Directing his massive, rabid following, who has, a large amount of experience being used by him as Portnoy's attack dogs to reporters and other women who criticize him, women like defectors Laura Wagner, who receive onslaughts of death threats, sexual harassment,
He knows
doxing, things of that nature. So for him to sick that on this literal sophomore in college because she deployed a taunting tactic that the white woman opposite her had been before her. And listen, I understand. I know people have been saying there was a longer clip. She might have said something else. She might have been kind of antagonizing her.
She was. Okay.
I just would encourage people, if that's the case, which listen, I'm not even disputing that. I'm not even minimizing that. I'm just saying Patrick Beverly exists. Chris Paul exists. Michael Jordan, who was a role model for millions of children in the 1990s, was one of the most ruthless, brutal, vicious trash talkers, maybe the most vicious trash talker this side of like Larry Bird of all time in the NBA. This is not abnormal. This is not beyond the pale. This is not an aberration. This is competition.
Okay.
And also, Kate Fagan made this point too on the Dan Le Batard show. Do we want women's hoops to be boring, or are women's hoops too boring? And then it can't be both. It can't be that women's hoops
only the white girl gets to do it.
It can't be that women's hoops
only the white girl gets to do
it. It can't be that women's basketball is either not controversial enough or then too controversial when it gets to be exciting. Like, this is part of the game. These things happen in the heat of the moment, and it's about competition. This is what I think we should want from sports, where rivalries actually feel like they hold weight and they have purpose and they have intensity and they have fire behind them.
Yeah.
And they have the outcomes lead to something where these players have a willingness and a desire to get back out there next year and continue this. This is what we want from sports, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, Dylan Brooks is filling this role right now.
Draymond Green.
Draymond, right.
We valorize this stuff. Joakim Noah, we valorize this stuff in male basketball players who ignite, enforcers in the NHL who ignite a spark in their teammates by being nasty, by being antagonistic,
and
by trying to get under their skin.
In the face in
and
that
they're
instance.
fighting. They are legally sanctioned fighting each other on the ice.
Tom Brady screaming with spittle at the top of his lungs
Right,
in
Brady
the
and
face
Chris
of opposing
Jones,
players. It's just ridiculous. And so the part of this is that they think, women should be above this and don't go after Caitlin Clark, the poor little white girl who's going to have her fifis hurt, even though she'd been doing this to players throughout the tournament. And I really like Caitlin Clark, by the way. Her response to this was totally fine. She kind of took it like, a champ. And she didn't seem to have that much of a problem with it. But what the resentment must be from certain players in women's basketball is that, like, we constantly are hearing about how Caitlin Clark is, like, more marketable. She's a marketable player. She's marketable for basketball. She's marketable for women's basketball to grow the game. And there's truth in that, right? But imagine if you're like a black player who's also at the top of your game in this sport.
Yeah.
Like Reese here.
Yeah.
She was number 2 coming out of high school. I didn't realize that. And Clark was number 4. So they were in the top 5 recruits. So there's been like probably an internal rivalry with some of these recruits for a while. And they faced off 2 of the top 5 recruits in the country in the national championship game. And there had been a lot of positive coverage poured onto Caitlin Clark for some of her trash talk and seemingly like, doing so to another majority black team in South Carolina. And Reese used that as motivation to go into the championship game. That's what champions do. And then when it came time to talk a little trash, she did. So, like, honestly, there's nothing negative to come out of this. except for the racism directed at her by guys like Portnoy, by little bitches like Portnoy, who don't have an original thought to add to the conversation. So they just choose to hide behind their hordes of fans who will do their dirty work for them. And he's just like pissed off because he lost a bet. I mean, it's just like the narcissism involved in that is astounding to me. But regardless, like overall, it doesn't seem like Caitlin Clark was that upset about it.
I was just gonna say,
And
in her post game remarks, she basically was like, "I wasn't even fully clocking it because I was kind of focused on how I would have, this was like the last moment of our season, last moment with some of our graduating players, like." So
no need to white knight for her, Portnoy. No need to be a little bitch and white knight for her.
She gave credit to Kim Mulkey. She gave credit to the team. She wasn't like, I felt super disrespected. That was wrong. Like, she could have done that. She absolutely could have done that, and she chose not to, and she didn't because either one, it didn't bother her that much, or two, a athlete is recognizing another athlete competing their ass off and winning the championship against him.
Yeah, so he just, I mean, the dude has a Napoleon complex. And I just the other than what the fallout from it, this is good for women's sports. It's good for basketball, and
100%.
It's good for basketball generally, not just women's basketball. But once these two players, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark get drafted into the WNBA, there's only 12 teams in the WNBA?
Yeah, let me just double check.
It's about half the size of the NBA, if not less. So there's not a lot of
there are 12 teams.
12 teams.
Yeah.
They're going to play each other a lot. And you know who that's good for? The WNBA. And it's good for them. So even if, there's some interpersonal drama between the two and they might not like each other behind the
interpersonal
scenes,
drama between basketball players, as if the entire media ecosystem of the National Basketball Association isn't completely centered around interpersonal rivalries between basketball players.
I know.
No way. We can't have that.
God. Anyway, I just couldn't believe that.
Because we know, of course, that guys, that rabble-rousers in the NBA, like Patrick Beverley, get zero coverage from media outlets about their rabble-rousing.
And here's the other thing, too. Like, what was so annoying to watch about this discourse yesterday is that when people were upset, the double standard would be immediately pointed out to them, and then they'd find some excuse to say, well, actually, it's not the same because she was doing it for over a minute. And it's like, you know what? You're just telling on yourself. You're just telling on yourself that you have different standards and you want to protect the little white girl, and the black woman is just being, outrageous here.
Just to give an example, like, we still I bring up Patrick Beverley. The reason I bring him up is not to necessarily villainize him or even dispute his position in the game. As I'm bringing him up in the sense of like, this is a guy who is, after a playoff loss, pushed Chris Paul in the back to push him to the ground. And then this season, you'll get every time he exhibits one sort of antic or another, you're instantly getting a push notification from Bleacher Report being like, "Oh, Pat Bev is so funny. Like, look at him do the too small thing to LeBron." It's because there's a position. It's because there's a position for that. It's because there's a use for that. It's because there's a role for that in the NBA. Yes, he's an asshole. Yes, he's a shit stirrer. Yes, he's an antagonist. That's the point.
Yeah.
There should be, and there is absolutely space for that in women's sports. To gatekeep that role for only women's sports is to literally reduce what could be possible in women's sports. Rivalries and real competition, this is what it looks like, and it's good. It's not bad.
Yep. Yes,
I cannot say it more strongly. This is good. I want more real shit like this.
And neither of the women, the young women, did anything wrong. Caitlin Clark,
not at all.
Angel Reese did nothing wrong.